Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com and Christopher Renstrom Astrology, and I want to welcome you to my February horoscope forecast for 2025. On February 1st, Venus conjoins Neptune in the zodiac sign of Pisces. Now, this is one of astrology's trippiest pairings because when you're hooked, you're hooked. Infatuation doesn't even begin to explain it. The high is so intense that you'll swear that you've found your soulmate. Yet the Venus-Neptune conjunction can also make you fearful of doing the wrong thing. It can throw a kind of don't ask, don't tell gag order over your true feelings because you don't want to break the spell. It's why Venus-Neptune conjunctions are famous for secret crushes that never get revealed and secret crushes that are never reciprocated. My warning to you is don't let the fantasy drain the life out of the reality of what could be. You'll never know if you're meant for each other unless you speak up. Signs most affected are Taurus, Libra, and Pisces. On February 3rd, Mercury in Aquarius forms a trine to Jupiter in Gemini. Trines are good. Trines describe a period of time when two planets in different signs are united together by the same element. In other words, Mercury in the zodiac sign of Aquarius is said to form a trine to Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Gemini because both zodiac signs are air signs. And so air will always support air no matter what particular sign that it is in. It also marks a period of time when planets are trining that they change their dispositions to one another. Planets that might not always agree or get along suddenly support and encourage one another when they're in zodiac signs that trine. So what happens here is that Mercury, the planet of communication, becomes much more of a helpmate when it is forming a trine to Jupiter in Gemini. Something that makes this even more so is the fact that Mercury rules the zodiac sign of Gemini. Mercury rules the zodiac sign that Jupiter, the planet of good fortune and higher purpose, happens to be traveling through. So that portends all sorts of good things. But the thing that we have to watch out for is that Jupiter has a tendency to take on too much when it's in the zodiac sign of Gemini. For instance, Jupiter in Gemini may claim that it can do something before it's familiarized itself with the situation. Or it may boast that it can sell any product without inspecting the merchandise up close. Or Jupiter in Gemini, particularly retrograde, can wind up making promises that it can't keep. That's because Jupiter in Gemini has this intrepid belief that it can always figure out things along the way, and that there's no tight spot or tight corner that it can't escape from. But sometimes it can't escape from these tight corners, and sometimes it can't talk its way out of a situation. That's why this trine to Mercury in Aquarius will prove to be so positive and helpful. What happens when Mercury forms a trine to Jupiter in Gemini is that something beyond your reach may not be beyond somebody else's, and all you have to do is ask for help. It's kind of like reaching for a product that's on a shelf higher than you can possibly reach for, and then someone comes along and says, "Oh, can I get that for you?" And you're like, "Yes, please, thank you." And the person does. So helping people out is something that Mercury, Jupiter trines, and air signs are famous for. But we have to remember that Gemini is a transactional sign. So in other words, the person who's helping you out is going to expect you to help them out one day. So go ahead and be prepared to ask for help, but at the same time, whoever helps you, also be prepared to be there for when they need your help one day. Signs most affected are Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces. On February 4th, Venus enters the zodiac sign of Aries. Provocative energies are strong when Venus is traveling through the realm of Mars. This stokes passions, this stokes tempers, and rivalries. So expect to fight for what you want and to defend what's yours. This will definitely make life exciting. But be forewarned that this is not a good time to begin anything serious with a paramour, because what starts off with a bang will burn out just as fast. This is because Venus is more passionate than she is romantic when she's moving through this part of the sky. So embrace the spirit of adventure and live in the moment. That way you'll enjoy the thrill and avoid the chill. Venus will be in and out of the zodiac sign of Aries until June 5th. Signs most affected are Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Another significant planetary event taking place on February 4th is Jupiter coming out of retrograde. Now, staying true to your higher purpose hasn't been easy these past 4 months. Chances are you were beset with setbacks, relapses, and bad luck spells that would have sent a lesser soul scrambling. Thankfully, this changes now that Jupiter, the planet of good fortune, is coming out of retrograde. Not only will Jupiter help you to regain lost ground, but Jupiter will also show you that there really is a lesson to be learned from your recent travails. This moral to the story will embolden you to act according to your best self over the next 6 months. This is when you will see for yourself that good guys really do come out on top, as long as you let your conscience be your guide. Signs most affected are Gemini, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces. On February 5th, we will have a first quarter moon in the zodiac sign of Taurus. This is the time for putting your shoulder to the wheel. Too much mental energy has been spent on what ifs or what could have beens. Taurus is a wonderfully industrious sign, straightforward and results-oriented. The best way to answer those big questions about whether or not you're capable or if anything will come of your efforts is to work, and to work hard. Not only will you impress those who didn't think you had it in you, but you'll even surprise yourself with how determined you can be. This newfound resolve will push you to produce like you've never produced before. Signs most affected are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Capricorn, and Aquarius. On February 7th, Venus forms a sextile to Pluto. They say that great minds think alike, but it's great hearts that feel alike when Venus forms a sextile to Pluto in the sky. You could meet someone who makes you ask, "Where have you been all my life?" Their views couldn't be more simpatico with yours, and their humor, infectious. Plus, they're not hard on the eyes either. This could blossom into a full-scale romance if you want it to, or you might meet someone who is a fellow professional. If you do, then you will quickly discover that the two of you click in a way that you've never clicked with anyone before. They may have a lot to offer you work-wise, and you may have a lot to offer them creativity-wise. Finally, this sextile could bring out a side in someone that you never knew was there. In other words, a loved one or a friend may surprise you with a depth of compassion or profound insight that you suspected they might possess, but you weren't always sure would ever surface. Signs most affected are Aries, Taurus, Libra, Scorpio, and Aquarius. On February 9th, the Sun forms a conjunction to Mercury in the zodiac sign of Aquarius. You may be surprised to discover that someone has been working very hard to contact you. Indeed, this person has gone out of his or her way to return a lost object, to get you a refund, or impart an important piece of information that others were trying to conceal from you. It's remarkable that someone you don't even know would have sacrificed so much. Call it principle, call it duty, or maybe it's just the simple fact that after weeks of running behind, Mercury, the planet of communication, has finally caught up to the Sun in the sky. It's nice to know that people still care about others' welfare and about doing the right thing. It's something to keep in mind for when you find yourself charged with a similar errand one day. Signs most affected are Gemini, Leo, Libra, and Aquarius. On February 9th, we have another important planetary aspect taking place. Retrograde Mars in Cancer will be forming a trine to Saturn in Pisces. Now, what happens today may have its roots in events that took place back when Mars and Saturn formed their first trine in the zodiac signs of Cancer and Pisces, and that was on September 29th. Now, Mars is retrograde, meaning it's moving backwards in the sky, and so whatever situation took place on September 29th is now going to be faced again on February 9th. Now, this puts me in mind of one of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite films, Now Voyager. Now Voyager was written by Olive Higgins Prouty, who also happened to pen Stella Dallas, the subject of an earlier Christopher Renstrom astrology episode back in July of 2024. Now Voyager, in a nutshell, is the story of a woman. She's got a very overbearing mother. And this woman's name is Charlotte Vale, and she comes from a very wealthy, well-to-do Boston family. And her mother is very domineering, so domineering that Charlotte has lost all confidence. And over the years, she's just kind of emerged into this shrinking violet, into something that you would overlook in the room like a potted fern. She's gained weight. She never tweezes her eyebrows. She wears very thick glasses. Her hair is very unflattering. And she always appears in this kind of really unflattering polka dot dress with a really bad silhouette, by the way. But anyway, she's very much dominated by her mother, and she's played by Bette Davis. And so the film begins with a psychiatrist showing up, Claude Rains, who has been beseeched by a cousin of Charlotte's to come and talk to the mother about removing Charlotte from her house for a temporary period of time to a sanitarium in order to regain her self-confidence, in order to go through some sort of psychoanalysis that's objective is to regain her self-confidence. And of course, the doctor, upon meeting the mother, realizes what a hell that poor Charlotte Vale has been living in. The mother is very cold. She's very icy. She's very Saturnine. There's nothing that Charlotte can do right, and she absolutely dominates Charlotte, even in the conversation. The mother goes so far as to answer the questions that the psychiatrist is asking Charlotte herself, and telling the doctor exactly what Charlotte is like and what her expectations and hopes are. And of course, the whole idea is that there's nothing wrong with Charlotte. There must be something wrong with you, that you think that there's something wrong with my daughter. And of course, Charlotte has been sort of handpicked by the mother to be a companion in her older years. And that means wiping out any sort of prospect or possibility of having a life of her own and forget about romantic interests. Well, Charlotte, during the course of this interview, does have a breakdown, and the psychiatrist says, we are both bearing witness to a mental breakdown with your daughter, and she really needs to be removed from this home for a short period of time just to recover who she is. And so the mother grudgingly agrees, and Charlotte is off to the doctor's sanitarium. And there she does find herself. She loses weight. She changes her appearance. She grows more confident in her group discussions where she talks about herself. She befriends other people who are there. And the doctor suggests at the end of their time that instead of returning to her mother's house, that she take a cruise to South America. Okay. Don't you just love that you could come from a family and that you could have a breakdown and go to a sanitarium and recoup everything, and then instead of going back to your tyrannizing mother, take a trip to South America? Why not? And so Charlotte does. Charlotte agrees to take this trip to South America to sort of put off having to see her mother again. She doesn't want to lose the confidence that she's just gained. And that's kind of what's going on here with a Mars-Saturn trine. The beauty of Mars-Saturn trines is more than just the fact that a trine will soften the edges of Mars and it will soften the edges of Saturn. Mars isn't as aggressive or hostile when it forms a trine to Saturn, and Saturn isn't as cold and remote and withdrawn when it forms a trine to Mars. It actually becomes very supportive. The trine is excellent for facing personal fears or qualms or anxieties. What makes the trine particularly efficient in the water signs, Mars is in Cancer, Saturn is in Pisces. These are two zodiac signs that are different from one another. They even appear in two totally different seasons of the year. Cancer is the zodiac sign of the summer, and Pisces is the zodiac sign at the end of winter. But here the natural sympathy, bond, and support that water gives to another water sign becomes apparent. And so it becomes supportive and nurturing in this particular placement. Facing one's fears or anxieties isn't based on being bigger than your fear or powering on through or intellectually, outmaneuvering that fear and anxiety or explaining it away. Facing the fear and anxiety comes from being in the right emotional place to do it. But Charlotte is really not in a position to go back to her mother's home. And so, hence, they book the trip to South America. This is kind of what's going on here with the retrograde Mars trining the Saturn, okay? It's the second time that these two planets will trine. The third time will be on April 4th. So what's here is kind of like, you're ready to return, you're ready to face, but maybe you need a little bit more time. And so what Charlotte does is that she goes on this wonderful tour of South America that I just talked about. And then we just have one of the best scenes. I'm sorry, it's just a fabulous scene. The passengers are like all waiting for this one passenger who's running late to emerge. And so she emerges, and it's Betty Davis. And she's dropped the weight, and she's wearing this fabulous outfit and this like hat, and she's just so glamorous. And you can't even believe that it's Charlotte from before. During the course of this voyage, she meets Paul Henreid. You might remember him from Casablanca. He's the romantic lead. He's Ingrid Bergman's romantic lead in Casablanca. So handsome, so fabulous, so like glamorous. Anyway, she meets him, and they have this wonderful affair. And again, it's one of those things that you can do when you're not in your regular day-to-day life. One of the beautiful things about these watery trines is that they sort of take us out of our day-to-day world. A lot of times, water trines are associated with dreams or fantasy or even wish fulfillment. But water trines can also appear as these kind of strange interludes in our lives, like when you're, I don't know, on a tour of South America and you meet Paul Henreid. Okay, it's this kind of dropping out of time, dropping out of your day-to-day world so you can have this fabulous affair. So she has this wonderful affair with Paul Henreid. She discovers that he's married and has a child. Charlotte, even though she knows that she should protest, she's from a good, well-heeled Boston family, could care less. They're in South America. She's not going to sacrifice it over that. So, but he does have to go back to his wife. Charlotte does have to go back home to her mother. And this is where we pick up what I wanted to communicate to you about this retrograde Mars-Saturn trine. Charlotte comes back home, and she's wearing this beautiful clothing that she's been wearing on tour. Her cousin, who arranged for the sanitarium, also happened to arrange for her to have these beautiful wardrobe and has written little notes of what goes with what and things like that. So Charlotte returns back home, and she gets the thumbs up from the housekeeper of like, she's upstairs, but you look fabulous, and I'm sure things will be okay. And her cousin is like, believe in who you are, Charlotte. So she goes upstairs to meet her mother, okay, dressed to the nines, all right? And so her mother takes one withering look, and she's like, take off that ridiculous outfit. Take off that ridiculous lipstick and makeup. You look like a fool. And Charlotte's like, Mother, I've returned from a trip. I'm so happy to see you. Aren't you happy to see me? And she's like, take that off immediately. You will wear your pink and black foulard. Put that on immediately. Get rid of this travesty that you've appeared in. And Charlotte says, no, I'm not going to. I mean, part of her is like, maybe I should like put on my pink and black foulard. But she's like, no, I don't want to. And her mother's like, you don't want to? And she's like, no, and I don't have to. And her mother's like, you don't have to. What will you think when I disinherit you and take away your millions of dollars? You'll be worth nothing. Then you'll have thought better of the choices that you're making right now. And Charlotte is like full of fear for a moment, and then she stops. It's this amazing moment of acting from Bette Davis. She stops in the scene and she looks down and she looks back at her mother and she's like, I'm not afraid. And her mother's like, you're not what? And she's like, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid, mother, of you. And she's like, you're not afraid. And she's like, yes, you can take away your millions if you want to. Well, you're feeling reckless now, dear. You can take that away, mother, because you know what? I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid. And it's this beautiful moment. It's not this wild confrontation. It's not like Charlotte, like, being rude or horrible to her mother. Her mother's being horrible to her. But it's this affirmation. It's this assertion. And it comes from a deep realization that I don't have to go back to being that cowering figure. I don't have to go back to being afraid. I don't have anything to make me feel particularly assured, that I shouldn't be afraid. And this is what the retrograde Mars Saturn trine is going to do on February 9th. You may turn around and want to go back to who you were. You may face a frightening situation. Maybe there's an intimidating boss, or your spouse is very controlling, or there's a family member who's very domineering. The Mars in retrograde is backwards motion. It wants to turn back and run away, but the Saturn is going to stop it. The Saturn is going to stand between you and the door, and it's going to say, you can do this. You don't have to be afraid anymore. And you might think about, well, what are my guarantees? What are my options? What are my plans? And Saturn is simply saying, you don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to. And the Mars is going to take strength from that. And again, it won't be fiery, it won't be showy, it will simply be the quiet realization of I'm not frightened. I'm not afraid anymore. And this is something that you can look forward to experiencing on February 9th. And it will just be a quiet moment. It will be a private moment. Maybe it doesn't even take place in conversation, but what it will do is that it will strengthen you. It will give you a resolve you didn't know that you had before. And now you do. It will be just a seed, just a silent, quiet little resolve. But it will go on to grow. It will gather more energy. It will gather more strength so that it flowers and it blooms when Mars and Saturn form their final trine in the zodiac signs of Cancer and Pisces on April 4th. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. On February 10th, Mercury will form a square to Uranus in the sky. You've always talked about what you would do if you had the freedom to pursue what you wanted to do, and now that day has come. Maybe the freedom is the result of a move, or a loss of employment, or a total shift in life direction. In any case, you possess the resources, the wherewithal to set up the kind of life that you want. But you need a plan. Don't fixate on security and paying the bills. That would be like putting the cart before the horse. Those things will take care of themselves. What you want to do? What you want to do is create the life you find personally fulfilling, and not the life that's defined by fulfilling others' expectations of you. This can be done if you let the ingenuity of Mercury lead the way. Do that, and you'll never go back to the way that you were living again. Signs most affected are Gemini, Taurus, Leo, Virgo, and Aquarius. On February 11th, the Sun will square Uranus in the sky. New rules aren't always easy to learn, especially when they apply to situations that you're used to dominating. Nevertheless, it would be a good idea to learn them, because those reforms and changes that people have been hinting at are here to stay. Uranus in Taurus turns convention on its head. So there's no point in waiting for things to go back to normal, because that just isn't going to happen. Make a point of welcoming the new guard, of familiarizing yourself with the different expectations, and expressing your eagerness to learn. Not only will this save you from the chopping block, but you may even grow as a result. Signs most affected are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. On February 12th, there will be a full moon in the zodiac sign of Leo. When there's a full moon in Leo, you're going to feel like the fabled lion that's got a thorn stuck in its paw. You're hurt, and you're looking for someone to make it better. You will bellow at loved ones, roar at colleagues, and carry on until you feel like you're getting the help you're seeking. Now, people may not take you seriously at first, but they will, eventually. A full moon in Leo only gets louder the longer that it's ignored. Now, you can rest assured that someone will come running to the rescue and pluck that thorn out. The result will be immediate relief and the return of good spirits. But you may want to ask yourself, why did it have to get to this point? Couldn't you have asked for help sooner, or expressed your discontent earlier? Next time, don't wait so long to show that you're in pain. It will make life a lot easier for you, and it will make life a lot easier for those around you. Signs most affected are Cancer, Leo, Libra, and Aquarius. On February 14th, Mercury enters the zodiac sign of Pisces. This is a time when your powers of perception will increase. You will be extremely receptive to the fluctuation in people's moods and manner. Now, Mercury in Pisces won't turn you into a mind reader, but you will notice an increase in psychic abilities and nightly dream activity. Your imagination works a lot easier as the flow of pictures and images goes from being a trickle to a steady stream. But bear in mind that your analytical abilities won't be as strong as you switch mental hemispheres from cerebral intelligence to emotional intelligence. It's true that Mercury in Pisces will make you a deeper and more empathetic person, but it could also lead to some serious lapses in judgment on February 15th, February 20th, February 25th, and March 2nd. Signs most affected are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On February 18th, the Sun enters the zodiac sign of Pisces. There's always a feeling of life wiping the slate clean when the Sun enters Pisces. That's because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Pisces is a sign of endings, but Pisces is also a sign that anticipates beginnings as well. So this is a good time to take care of unfinished business, to tie up loose ends, and to bag anything that you don't want in your life and leave it out by the curb for the garbage to clean up. You'll be amazed by how much purging you'll do once you get started. May feel even a bit heady, but it's important because you want to be able to travel light when the Sun enters the zodiac sign of Aries on March 19th. That's when the pace of your life will pick up quite significantly. Signs most affected are Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, and Pisces. On February 19th, Mercury in Pisces will form a square to Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Gemini. Squares, as you may recall, always bring conflict. Planets that form a square to one another are always trying to get the upper hand and put the other planet in its place. This Mercury-Jupiter square may describe an inner conflict that's going on with you, or the Mercury-Jupiter square may describe a conflict that's taking place in which you may be taking one of the sides of each of the two planets. Let me make that easier to understand. Mercury, for instance, is in the zodiac sign of Pisces. This is going to be a very emotional, a very sensitive placement. People who are born under water signs, and this would affect people born under Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, may feel at this time like somebody is putting words in your mouth, like you're being cross-examined about what you feel, that someone's being really aggressive, that you agree with what it is that they have to say, that you toe the line, that you're acting irrationally or oversensitively, and they are the voice of reason. The more that people who have strong water in their charts, the more they have a tendency to not say anything. They go quiet. They get very fuzzy-headed. They get very confused and bewildered. They get really resentful that someone is trying to make them think or say something that they don't think and say, and they'll get very quiet. And so there can be a tendency to get very tongue-tied. And this might be something that you might be experiencing during this period of time when Mercury is ruling Jupiter. It might be hard for you to think of those witticisms or that great comeback because you feel under assault by someone's dispassionate passion. But what's interesting about this square is that Jupiter rules the zodiac sign that Mercury is in. So you may feel like you're being very much dominated by someone else's logic and by their clear thinking, and you might begin to even believe that maybe you are the one who's being oversensitive or irrational or something along those lines. But Mercury, which is in Pisces, happens to rule Gemini, which is the zodiac sign that Jupiter is in. So what that means is that this exchange that's gone on between you and someone else isn't going to sit well with the other party. There's going to be something about the exchange that the other party is going to feel like, did I come on too strong? Was I too bullying? I mean, I was logical and I was being rational, but did I upset somebody else's feelings? And now I feel kind of bad about that. And the reason for that remorse, the reason for that feeling of guilt is because Mercury rules Gemini, which is the zodiac sign that Jupiter is in. And what this will do is that it will create a situation. That is, after you've both had some time to cool down, it will create a situation where you can get together again and work out your differences more harmoniously and constructively. Signs most affected are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. On February 23rd, Mercury in Pisces will form a trine to retrograde Mars in Cancer. This is a good time to revisit a sore point or to broach a sensitive topic because the other side is receptive. But you still have to be careful. It's analogous to entering a psychic minefield. What's important is to ask leading questions that gets the other person talking. And what's also important is for you to do a lot of listening. Don't be surprised if you started out this conversation with one idea in mind, only to discover that there really is something to the other person's side of the story. This is bound to change your opinion on the matter, and the fact that the person is also questioning their previous assumptions may lead to a totally unexpected meeting of the hearts. Signs most affected are Aries, Gemini, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Another important event that will be taking place on February 23rd is Mars, the planet of gumption and drive, finally coming out of retrograde. Mars has been retrograde since December 6th, and since that time you might have felt like you were moving backward more than forward. Mars retrogrades are kind of like racing up a muddy hill with someone spraying a fire hose at you at the same time. There's lots of slipping and sliding and falling down. For the past few weeks, it would have felt like you couldn't make any headway, no matter what you did. And it's understandable if you felt intensely frustrated during this period, helpless and hopeless, and even defeated. So, what happens now that Mars is coming out of retrograde? It's like one of those moments when animals are released back into the wild after a period of rehabilitation. Some go racing off and disappear into the forest in moments. Some are a bit disoriented and need some time to get their bearings, while others just hang out in the back of the truck, waiting for nightfall to make their escape. Whatever your reaction, rest assured that you'll soon be making progress again and eager to make up for all the lost ground and time. Signs most affected are Aries, Cancer, Leo, Libra, Scorpio, and Capricorn. On February 25th, Mercury will form a conjunction to Saturn in Pisces. Pisces puts a lot of stock in its hopes and dreams. Some might regard this as fanciful, but that's how the imagination sketches out on an empty canvas its vision of how life could be. Without this, there would be nothing beyond the next chore or task. However, visions don't materialize on their own, and the challenge of translating what you see in your mind's eye to your day-to-day life can seem daunting. Mercury-Saturn conjunctions are often associated with disappointment and rejection. For many, this is seen as proof positive that things weren't meant to be, and so they give up. But for those of you who are truly committed to their vision, this forces you to become more determined and resourceful, because it's only by working with the paints and brushes that reality furnishes you with that you'll create the life you want to live. Signs most affected are Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. On February 27th, Mercury forms a sextile to Uranus. Mercury's powers of analysis aren't what they should be when it's passing through the zodiac sign of Pisces. That's because its journey through this watery realm tends to confuse, baffle, and bewilder. Yet there's often inspiration in the gobbledygook, if you're open to it. There's a genius to a Mercury-Uranus sextile that allows you to connect the dots in ways you couldn't before. This leads you to discover the solution to a puzzle or predicament that's eluded you for far too long. Signs most affected are Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, Aquarius, and Pisces. On February 27th, there will be a new moon in Pisces. The new moon in Pisces brings extraordinary good news. However, this good news could prove to be as problematic as it will be gratifying. The problematic part comes from getting what you want without really understanding the consequences. Now, wishes rarely make a smooth transition from longing to fulfillment, and this is what will be happening. It's not unlike a lottery winner who finds their lives transformed overnight by having come up with the lucky numbers, or King Midas suddenly developing the golden touch. At first, this is absolutely spectacular. It's going to look like all the problems in your life have been solved. But do you remember the story of King Midas and the golden touch? King Midas gets the golden touch completely by happenstance. He hasn't done anything to earn it. He hasn't done anything to build to this point where he now has the golden touch. It's just given to him. And at first, it's a miracle. It's wonderful as he goes around and he touches flowers and plants and branches, and they turn into golden gardens and golden groves of trees. And everyone is absolutely amazed. All of the financial problems of King Midas's kingdom have suddenly been taken care of. Okay, so everyone is praising the king and celebrating his golden touch. And of course, in wanting to celebrate the golden touch, they bring him food and they bring him wine. This is going to be an absolutely wonderful party. And so the food arrives and the wine arrives. But of course, no sooner does King Midas pick up the fork, which turns to gold, and he puts the fork into the meat and takes a bite, the meat turns to gold. No sooner does he touch the goblet, which turns to gold, and he drinks to sip the wine, than the wine turns to gold. All of a sudden, he realizes how good fortune has become something of a nightmare. And the nightmare is he may possess the golden touch, but he's still a mortal being that needs to eat, and he's still a mortal being that needs to drink, and he won't be able to do any of these things. And he begins to get very worried. He begins to get very anxious. All of this comes to a head when his daughter, a little girl, hears that he's come back home, that he has a golden touch, and she goes running to greet him. And he says, "No, no, no." And she's like, "Father." And she runs and he catches her because she's thrown herself at him. She's like 6 or thereabouts. And she immediately turns to gold and he begins to weep. And this is a story. This is a Greek myth that is told to us that really part of the meaning of the story is careful what you wish for because you might just get it. but it's a little bit more profound than that. It talks to the cost of good fortune in your life. You don't suddenly come into good fortune and things change. Good fortune, like anything else, comes with a cost. Good fortune, like anything else, comes with consequences. However, this is still a new moon in Pisces, and it is forming a square to Jupiter in the zodiac sign of Gemini. And in this case, Jupiter rules the zodiac sign of Pisces. And so by Jupiter being in Gemini, that gives a sort of cleverness, that gives a sort of shrewdness that will help you to figure out your dilemma. So you might find a way to make this sudden and unexpected good fortune work, or you may find that the asking price of your good fortune is just too high a price to pay. Signs most affected are Gemini, Cancer, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Pisces. If you enjoyed what you saw, please press the like button. It helps more than you know. If you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. I've had such a wonderful time visiting with you this week, and I can't wait to get together next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.